All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this month's version of the IBM ZPro Solutions monthly roundtable series. For those of you who've been attending on a regular basis, you know that we do a series of topics, and that we this month we're talking about Maximo HSE Manager. We're very happy to have Russell B. with us from IBM, as well as David Jones from ZPro to help facilitate this session. For those of you who have been involved in these sessions before, you'll know that we do a presentation for the first, say, roughly 30 minutes, and then we jump into a Q&A. For housekeeping purposes, we do ask that you keep your cameras off as well as your lines muted during the presentation section, but naturally, as you are joining, as you are able to ask questions, and when we get into the Q&A, feel free to turn on your camera, feel free to unmute your line during that Q&A portion. This session is for everybody to interact. We get to ask Russell and David questions, so during that Q&A, please feel free to unmute your lines. But just for the sake of bandwidth, as well as any background noise, please mute your lines during the presentation. This is being recorded so that others will be able to partake in what Russell and David have to share today, as well as if you do have questions during the session, please feel free to put them into the chat, and we'll make sure that those questions are also aired during the Q&A session. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera and my share, and I'm going to turn it over to Russell. You can go ahead and share your screen.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, and I'll turn my, hello everyone, so it's Russell B here. I'm an architect working in Maximo product development. I've been working with Maximo now something like just over 20 years, most of that time working in Maximo product development. So I'll turn my camera off, and I'm going to share my screen here. So, oops. Just 1 minute while I share here. So just checking, Bob, can you see my share there now?
Not yet, Russell.
Okay. Just go back to Teams. Stop sharing. Open my share tray again.
There you go.
Yeah, to see it now. Great. Okay. So I'll just put this on presentation mode. Okay. Yeah. So the plan today is to spend about 15 minutes with you on an overview of the product with some slides and a bit of the background about why we've built this capability, what the key benefits are. And then we'll spend 15 minutes on a demo of a Maximo HSE up and running. And if we have any problems with that demo, we have some extra slides that we'll be able to share on the presentation itself. And then we'll have about half an hour for a Q&A session. And feel free to answer any topic questions. I've got a pretty good knowledge of what's going on around Maximo as well as Maximo HSE. So the focus today is HSE, but we're happy to answer other questions around Maximo. And together with these slides, there is a set of reference information at the back of it that we won't present today, but will be available if you want to get hold of a shared copy of these slides afterwards. So, why build HSE in Maximo? So the drive to do this really started quite a long time back, initially from our oil and gas customer base, who were really gave us a call to action to extend what we were doing around safety in Maximo. As soon as we started to think about that, we very quickly realised that the capability that there was very few aspects of this work that were specific to our oil and gas customers, and the HSE capability developed very generically, and then to the point where we actually introduced a separate HSE Manager product. So the safety capability in oil and gas and HSE Manager is very closely related. It's based on the same code base. But HSE Manager designed for any customer who wants to add incremental HSE capability to Maximo. Probably the thing to highlight as well, as you'll see when we look at the overview, that we use that term safety, but there is a set of operational processes closely linked to safety that we also provide with the product, as well as some aspects of it that would also support for those who use that designation, HSEQ, the quality aspects of aligned with safety as well. The big differentiator from what we do with Maximo is the alignment between asset and work management processes. There are many different best of breed and niche systems around there around health and safety. And our aim has been to achieve an integrated system without compromising necessarily on the functionality. If we're introducing incident management, for example, then we want that to be a rich and capability comparable with niche systems. But the thing that we do that is different from pretty well anyone else out there is this integration between asset and work management and the operational and safety related processes. And I think the general viewpoint is that if you can build applications that sort of cross organizational silos and bring together work management, safety and operations, then that leads to improved organizational performance. When you look at it practically, we see in our customer base that there are many applications around the asset and location structures that are common. So they basically share the same asset and location structures. Often when these systems are separated, the naming conventions used are different, so it's actually hard to interrelate them. So a common characteristic of the capability that we've built here is that they'll share common asset and location structures. Also, that the processes are often very closely integrated. So a good example would be permit to work, where there's close interaction between maintenance teams and operations teams to coordinate on the permit to work process. So maintenance owns the work orders, operations owns the permits, and it's important that the two processes link together very well. Management of change is another good example, very widely implemented by our customer base, where there are common asset and location structures. The change is often initiated from your Maximo system and could be implemented in Maximo as well. So it's a really natural target as an application of the HSE Manager. Defects Elimination is another example. So we will have some customers who would be having identifying defects as a class of work order. Within HSE, you can also manage defects in a separate application as well. And Our recently introduced civil infrastructure capability uses the HSE capability around defects for that purpose as well. But that often the identification of defects comes through the work management and operational processes, and then you have the ability to work to eliminate those defects through action teams and managing improvements, managing change, and often the managing the elimination of that defect through Maximo. So those from a pure business process perspective, those are the key areas why we've seen customers adopt this capability. From a practical perspective, in terms of infrastructure, it's all part of Maximo, uses the same infrastructure, uses the same tools to build it. It doesn't require additional server infrastructure. It can be administrated in the same way. And from a user's perspective as well, the training can be very similar. The look and feel of the products is in complete alignment with other aspects of Maximo. So those are really the drivers behind why you would want to do this. So just spend a few minutes now before we look at a demo, just providing an overview of the processes. And this is HSE Manager 762, which was released in November of last year. And I'll quickly walk you through at a high level the module and application structure, and I'll highlight some of the newer capability that we have introduced with the 762 release. With the accompanying slides, there's a couple of slides that give much more detail on the new capability. So if we start on the left-hand side, then we have the operational management processes. So significant one being operator logs. So we have an application that supports the shift logging. So that would be classic shift logs on a utility plant or a chemical process plant, oil and gas installation. Anywhere where you need to manage a shift log, then this capability can be applied, and the important associated capability of being able to manage the handover between shifts as well. We do see some customers using these as sort of engineering logs as well. So we've had customers in the water industry using sort of a monthly engineering log. So there is flexibility in the data structure. The length of the shift is something that is completely flexible in terms of how you use that capability. But the classic use case is around the shift log. New capability that we've introduced in the around operator logs in the 762 release is to start to leverage inspection. So for those of you who are starting to get familiar with the inspection capability in Maximo, that new inspections work centers, the design of that inspection capability was always built with the intention that we would be able to support both inspections and operator rounds. So the data structures are very similar. For a while, customers have wanted us to introduce operator round capability in the product, but we've sort of waited until inspections because that was always, we felt, the direction that we should be able to leverage inspection capability. So what we've introduced in HSE 762 is the ability to link from an operator log and reference and integrate the inspections results. So you can both manage inspections and set up inspection templates, but you can also record the results of your operator rounds using the inspection capability and copy them over onto the operator log. You can also very simply make free text descriptions of operator rounds on the operator log, but the real intent is to be able to leverage that inspection capability. And as we start to introduce the mobile Maximo with the disconnected inspection capability, which is an important use case for operator rounds. We think that this capability is something that's really going to be of value to a lot of our customers. We then have another set of applications with the ability to manage where it's operator-driven maintenance, to be able to assign tasks to operational personnel, to be able to manage operational actions. So that's the capability where we have a whole all the checklists that you'll see in the HSE Manager capability are brought together in one place as operational actions. And then we have the definition of both operating procedures and policies, and the ability to record production losses as well. So as we sort of start to go then through from left to right, and I'll sort of move quite quickly through this capability, keeping an eye on time. We have control of work, so closely aligned with operations and work management. So we positioned it in the middle there of the two, and this is where we have our risk management capability, the permit to work and isolation management applications, and new in 762 is access permits. So where you would perhaps want to carry out non-invasive work or have a third-party access to an area, then the permit to work process tends to be simpler than where maybe you've got a complex isolation requirements. So we've seen customers looking to be able to simplify that process. So we've introduced a new class of permit to support that. Alongside that, we've also introduced a lock management capability. So you can manage individual locks for access purposes, and the locks that you also use as part of the lockout tagout process here in this application. So that had been an area where customers have been looking for enhancements, and to be able to, say, for example, manage your master lockbox through Maximo. And then we have the supporting hazard management capability, which is straightforward extensions of the safety module capability around hazards and precautions. And then at the bottom there, one that's sort of seeing increasingly being used by customers around bypasses. So being able to use those, manage that process where you have to bypass a mechanical fire protection system or electronic fire alarms to perform maintenance work and safely manage that bypass operation. We also extend to get the integration with the assets and the between safety and assets and work management. We do a lot of work extending some of the assets and work management capabilities. So locations and assets are extended. We've introduced defects. We have a work order clone with all the integration into permits on it and risk assessment. And we've also extended the failure management capability as well within HSE Manager. We then have, as we keep moving right, the classic HSE management module here. So with the incident management, the ability to investigate unresolved incidents and then manage the corrective action associated with them. We have then here the process of certification as well associated with those assets. So Maximo has this, HSE has this certification artifact application that can be used to manage any type of certification. This is also the area where we have an anywhere application, a mobile incident reporting capability as part of HSE. From a compliance perspective, the ability to manage regulations is really important to our customers. We also have an audit management capability called Audit and Survey. In the safety and operational context, it becomes important to manage competency and skill levels around resources and increment some of the capability that we have in base products. So there's quite a bit of work being done in that area to enhance the people application, for example. And in the new release, we've delivered a new training capability, new training related applications which are integrated with across the product as well. So major area of work around training. As we keep sort of moving through here, then we come to the management of change. So management of change, that module includes a change request and a full MOC application, and then alongside that, the ability to link it into a continuous improvement process. And finally, the ability to, through the system, to be able to capture knowledge, lessons learned, be able to identify those as solutions and search on those solutions where you need to. And the checklist management capability we call standard actions and standard action groups that feature widely across the HSE product. So that's a quick walk through the and an overview of the product. So I'll change mode now, and we'll just have a quick look at the system itself for a few minutes. I'm just going to end my show there and share again. And, open my share tray and we'll open up Maximo. So just going to find Maximo here. So when we can find it, let's just open up my window with Maximo on it. Maximo login. If we can see that better.
Can't see your screen yet.
Yes, I'm just trying still to find it here. What I'm probably going to do is just share my desktop. That's probably the quicker way to do it. So you should see a Maximo screen there on my desktop.
We do.
Okay, great. So this is a Maximo 762. You'll see when I get into it that it's actually an oil and gas Maximo version. We actually just keep a common systems in development because the code for HSE is all the same. So everything that I show you here is in HSE Manager. So there's nothing I will show you that's not in HSE Manager. So famous Wilson logins, which as we move into the Maximo environment, 8 environment, you'll see our logins seem to get more complex. So I think Wilson may not last too much longer in Maximo 8, but been there a long time. Find a way of keeping him, I think. So just logging in now to the my 762 version. So this is a fairly newly configured version in development. We tend to sort of build these systems up and then lose them. So often when if I'm showing HSE, I'll show different roles set up for a HSE manager and operations managers to show the differences between the way that you would set that up. But I don't have that here. But it's sort of that the start center really fits very naturally as the place where your first place and the ability. So a HSE manager is perhaps looking at incidents and risks, a different set of data, but it's all configurable in the start center. We do actually provide some pre-built KPIs and result sets for MOC and permit to work that you can use to very quickly build HSE related start centers. So I'm first of all just going to navigate to the training just to show you that this is a completely new capability in Maximo. There's been a lot of interest in this from customers. So won't show you all the capability around training, but it basically consists of the heart of it is 2 applications called training courses and training modules. And training modules is a very simple application that just allows you, if you want to have a training course that is built up from a set of modules. But if we just take an example of one of these here, so in the as a training course, So this one is set here for offshore survival training in this case. So so you can sort of set up the basic characteristics of the module and who owns this module, this course. So a course can stand on its own without modules. So if I just quickly do the comparison here. So this course has three modules. You have to do the basics first, then you do a ditching simulation, then you do some survival at sea. So I can speak from personal experience in the past of having to do a survival at sea course and being dumped in a life raft in the middle of the English Channel. So that's an interesting experience. So we have those three modules in this case that make up the course. We can also identify any prerequisite courses that might be needed to do this particular course. So you can use this, and you can use this basically just to define a set of courses that you might want to reference elsewhere in different parts of the product. But what you can also do here is manage the actual sessions and instances of the course as well. So I can actually start to set up individual sessions, and I can identify the attendees at those sessions. So I can manage the actual delivery of my training here within Maximo, as well as define the courses that are required. So so that's the main elements of the training courses application. So if I then just went to say people, let's just pick someone here. I think I might have a record in this one. I did. So here is a person record. So you notice here, if we just go back, so we have the base person tab here, which is unchanged, and then HSE adds incremental capability around authority levels. You can actually define some characteristics by specific areas. HSE has the concept of area as well. But the key part of it is identification of authorizations associated with a person. So that you can, certain people you would say, for example, in the issue of the permit to work process, you'd want to be able to limit the issue of a permit to people who are qualified to authorised to do so on their person's record. So we have that incremental capability. We have the ability to identify the permit and certificate types against that are required by this person or have been achieved by that person. And so you can just do that as a type of permit and then reference and put in an external reference to it. Or so if I just did a just see whether we've, so just put a simple example here. So so I can put the type of permit, may not be the best example, but just as to show you here, I can just put in a simple description in this reference field of an external certificate, or I can actually use this certification capability in Maximo if I want to manage the specific certification in Maximo. So what customers were asking us for some time was the ability to actually identify training required in support of certification. So here I can build up a training plan and also identify the achieved training here. So Kazmaya has two planned trainings organised for them yet, and it hasn't been allocated to a session number yet. But that's can keep that history of that person's training. And there is an action here that if the training is associated with a certificate, that's one of the other capabilities we have. You can automatically copy over from the certificate to onto the training tab. So so that was a quick example. There are multiple areas. One of the key areas where we've extended the capability support training is around the crafts application. So I guess that's the place that craft is a role in Maximo. So so you can actually specify training requirements by craft and its associated skill level now in the 762 release. So some pretty extensive new capability around training that I just wanted to give you a glimpse of. And just one more area, just to give you an example of some of the new capabilities. We'll just find an access permit. And
hey, Russell, I've got a question around your training, and that is, where's the actual training kept?
Yeah, so let's just go back to the training here. So from here, let's navigate here to the here's the course is referenced against the person. If I move from here to training courses, then this is the detail of the course and the and then the actual sessions associated with this course can be found here. So this will actually so if I want to see the details there of I can confirm that the course has been completed, and okay. You can actually record detail of the performance on the course as well. But that's actually held on the person's application. So if we just look at a session here, then the dates associated with that session are held there. So the actual details of the training are in the training course, and then they're cross-referenced by the consuming application.
All right. So if I had a short presentation, slides, or video and a Q&A afterwards, that is not kept within that material. It just tells you that you have actually completed it with a score, and so you're not really holding the quote-unquote course material.
Right, I'm with you. Yeah. No, that's actually a good point. Yeah. So the actual the course material can be held here. So as in all of Maximo, we have a we have the courses would be you can hold them in attachments here.
Gotcha.
So you use basically leveraging standard Maximo attachment capability. And you can also hold there is an attachment at the module level as well. So you can have details of a module level there. So we could link to the module and have the details there. If that course level varied in terms of the you'll see here that there are also attachments at the session level. So if there was particular course material delivered at that session, and it might well vary over time, you can also have the ability to attach there at the session level.
All right, thank you. Okay.
So let's take a quick look now on access permits. I just need to return to my navbar to do that. And so just I won't save my changes. So here we are as an access permit. I've just started to enter some data in here. So let's just look at one. So as a typical use case. So in this case, it's one that's for access to a utilities area for a fire and gas system inspection. So in this case, it's sort of area access. There's not necessarily going to be invasive work done on the fire and gas system, but you just want to manage the ability for someone, perhaps an internal or external inspector, to come and have access to that area. So this is the new class of access permit. So it's like so we have the three different classes of permit now. We have permit to work, we have an isolation certificates, and we have access permit. And basically the process has been overall simplified. It also includes information on the permit people requiring access here. So this is a new capability that we've added here. So just to quickly show you this. So if so that can be you'll see here that can be an internal person, but if we just wanted to make that an external person who wasn't in Maximo, who was just a vendor coming to do some work and wasn't a user in Maximo, we can just edit them in there and track them as requiring access. We can also do the same thing here with the external company name, in that we can use a Maximo, a supplier from the that's identified in Maximo already, or if it's an external vendor or contractor who's not listed in Maximo, we can just put their name in here as well. So you've got that capability to identify the persons requiring access. There is a opportunity to have a simpler risk assessment process. You can cross-reference so that the hazard review is essentially a checklist. You can cross-reference a risk assessment record if you want to, but the use case here is to have a review action checklist. So you would have a checklist-based risk assessment for the site access, and in the same way, the controls associated with it would be you would have a checklist of controls for site access that you can apply here using the standard action capability. I don't have the data populated here. We have procedures, and a lot of from an access perspective, a lot of work is that there is often a method statement that's required by a contractor before they visit site. So you can have here a method statement using the rich text or linked into the permit. So we have the ability to put these attachments here directly on the face of the permit on the screen here. We also have this is another area where, in terms of, for example, training, if that person needed for example, to do a site induction, then I can actually record here that the site induction training is required. So that would be one of the use cases, to be able to manage induction training as well, where it was needed. The issue and acceptance process is pretty similar to the permit to work class, and then you have a closure. It's a simplified closure tab as well. So overall, sort of a stripped back and simplified process. You do have the ability to relate records. Here so you can relate it to other permits, and if you did want to relate it to something that required isolation, you could relate it into an isolation certificate if you wanted to. So that's the new access permit. So sort of in the short time we have, I wasn't sort of not trying to show you everything here, but just give you a quick example on the system itself of some of the new capability that we've introduced. So I guess that sort of just takes me just a little over half an hour of presenting and demo. So it's probably a good time to ask if there are any further questions. I'll keep my Maximo system up here, and if we need to look at anything or there's anything you need to ask me about, then we can quickly move to that. So Bob, I'll hand back to you and Dave.
Great. Thank you, Russell. That was a great presentation. Appreciate all the information. And to all the attendees, if you want to unmute your lines and to ask questions, please do, or you could put questions into the chat, raise your hand. It's a standard Teams meeting, so we all have access to ask questions to both Russell and David. Russell, first question that this came from somebody who was not able to dial into the session today, and it's a pretty standard question, but if we need to implement HSE Manager, how long does it take?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's in English what we would say, how long is a piece of string to an extent. Okay. So so we've seen HSE implemented really quickly. There are capabilities here that very rarely need much in the way of configuration. So investigations, audits, MOC actually as well, often implemented very quickly. So if you just sort of have specific pain points and want to implement one of the simpler applications to implement, like audits, you actually would do that really quickly. It just is an install onto your existing Maximo system. So from that perspective, it's it's a relatively simple process. If you have a lot of existing work orders and we're adding information onto the work orders, you sort of need to think about the timing and the time to actually update and go through the various processes associated with the installation. So typically the profile of implementing these sorts of applications is to implement them incrementally. So it's designed also to be modular, and that it's not designed with the expectation that you'd implement everything, and customers tend to pick and choose where they start. So maybe MOC is a common place to start, or with incidents, or perhaps permits, and then just sort of progress through it. So it can be pretty short, sort of typically sort of, I would say that the quickest probably around about 3 months. I've seen MOC implemented in 3 months. More complex implementations of, say, MOC with a lot of workflow probably take a little bit longer. I think the key thing around the safety-related applications is that there's always some process change as well, and cultural change introducing safety-related capabilities. So it's often better to increment that ability. So you might actually start off with an initial implementation that was a few months, but if you went through and implemented all the modules, probably over time that would you could be well over a year doing that if you're implementing everything. If you were, say, implementing permit to work and just doing permit to work on its own, then you have some related things usually you'll do with it around risk assessment and hazards and some of those supporting capabilities. So permit to work would be one of the more complex things to implement on its own. And that might sort of typically take around 6 months, just from what I see of customers.
Thank you. That makes
Russell,
sense. And I wanted to ask one more question. Our ZPro team is working on a few mobility assessments for our clients that will lead to mobility deployments, whether it be Maximo Anywhere, Maximo Mobile, or a different solution. What is the visibility of the data being stored here, such as like an access permit or a permit to work? Or if I need to find out if a certain person has the proper safety protocols. I mean, what is the visibility of data that can be fed over to mobility?
Well, it's all there on the. These are all your extensions of existing objects, so it's all there. We only make available from an IBM perspective, the incident reporter. So there are a number of people out there who've been working and customers implementing with various business partners who've implemented mobile versions of some of this capability. Over time, you will probably see IBM add additional incremental capability in some of these areas, but it's always going to be a world where business partners are operating as well. So basically, it's just you would extend it in the way that you would add any mobility to a Maximo application.
That makes sense. David, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I do. We have some questions around permit to work. Could you just give a quick overview of that in Maximo?
Yeah, so we looked at the permit to work capability. We looked at the access permit capability. Let's go to permit to work and just quickly show you the difference there. Just not going to change save my changes there, just in case I've missed anything and I just asked to validate. So I think on permit to work, this is just a new, I usually have quite a few permit records to show you, so I'll just have to create a new one, so it's not going to have any data in it. So this is a permit to work. So you'll see there are more tabs than the access permits, and there is a sort of more process around permit to work. There is a compared with the access permit, there is a stronger focus on the hazards and isolation. So let's just look at some of the capability here. So I can carry out, so I can do a full sort of risk matrix based risk assessment using hazards and precautions that will copy over from the work order if it's on a work order. So I can incorporate the risk assessment on a work order. You can also do, as on the access permit, hazard reviews, which is a checklist-based risk assessment. Some types of sort of low-risk permits don't necessarily need the full risk matrix approach. So we see that requirement varying from customers. On a permit to work, you can also track and record your gas testing. You can also isolate on the, so we do provide a separate isolation certificate application, but you can also incorporate your log out, tag out directly onto the permit into the permit to work application, which you can't do on an access permit. So customers' processes vary. So and quite often the customers will use separate isolation certificates. But if you do want to manage isolation on the permit, then the capability is here as well. There is a review and approval process. So the review side of things is optional. Maybe if it's a complex permit, then you would have part of the review process. But there is the process here to be able to approve a permit. For some customers who don't who just have authorization and not approval of a permit, there is the option to just be able to move quickly through the approval process without a formal approval. But it would have to be authorized, but not everyone has the sort of pre-stage of approval of the permit. So there are a lot of options, and if you're implementing permit to work, sort of in the organization's HSE clone, there are a lot of different options that sort of you can set up to simplify the way through the permit process if you need to. You have the ability, once you've approved a permit, to have there's a checklist phase here, so you could have a pre-issue checklist that you could go through if needed. And then you have an issue and acceptance process. You can go through multiple stages of issue and acceptance. So if you're having if you've got a permit that might last over a few days rather than shifts, at the end of each day, you almost certainly want to suspend it and reissue it the next day. There's a process here that allows for multiple issue and acceptance. We have these concepts of the issuing authority and the performing authority. So the issuing authority is the person who has the authority to sign off and issue a permit, very much as you would a manual permit. That person has to be normally have the authorization to be able to and training to be able to issue that permit. The performing authority is the person on the team who has responsibility for implementing the work and signs off the permit. We do have the ability to capture multiple site checks. So if you're doing a permit that's being suspended and reissued, you would probably want to do the site check each time you issue, so that can be captured here. And there also is a capability for counter signature, sort of a cross signature on a permit if needed. And there are some less rules. The rules around issue and acceptance are quite formal, but there is opportunity to have a counter signature with there are less business rules around it. Then, having issued and accepted the permit, you can extend the permit if you want to. So, as well as the suspension process, you can extend it if you want to. Say extend the duration by, say, some work goes over at the end of a shift, and you want to extend the permit by the duration of a permit. You can do that. There's a process there to support that in the left-hand nav bar, and there is a the ability to manage toolbox talks, tailgate talks within the within here if necessary, and there's some quite detailed capability to sort of do dynamic risk review if you wanted to take it that far. Not every customer uses that. And finally, there is the sort of sign off, typical of the sign off you'd see on a manual permit that have all the various checks and been completed in the way they should have. And you can also link this permit here. You can actually link it into a most customers have a process where a proportion of permits need to be audited either in process or afterwards. So you can actually do that within the audit and safety capability within HSE. Related records, very similar to the we quickly looked at on the access permit, and then finally here sort of the ability to add an emergency checklist as part of the permit process if you need to as well. So that's a very quick go through with permit to work without one with data. I'm sorry there, but it gives you sort of a quick feel for the capability, I hope.
That was great. That question actually came from Patty Douglas. Patty, did you have any other questions about permit to work?
No, that was really helpful. We're kind of working on that with Core Maximo right now, using PM templates for permits that can be pre-approved, and job plans and safety plans, etc. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I've not. Yeah. That's yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear more about how you do that.
We have
I also see a question in the chat from Brian Furness. Brian, do you want to unmute your line and go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you. So OSHA in various states require right-to-know training modules for initial compliance and then annual refreshers. I've seen organizations use date of birth or date of course completion to track the refresher courses. Yes. How would Maximo help support that process?
Yeah. So OSHA, one of the areas that OSHA is particularly keen on is management of change, and so we had quite a strong input from customers on the on our management of change capability. So if we just quickly show you MOC. Save my changes there. So one of the areas where we've introduced training is on the MOC application. So I think I have an example here of training on the, so this is an MOC. So this is, for example, a personnel change in this case. So in this case, the nature of this role means that they need to have some specialist training before they would say be allowed to commence their new job. So here we're identifying the training courses required in Maximo, and then also the peak person. So in this case, it's Kazmaier who is the person related to this change that needs to complete this training before they go onto site. So if you're managing it formally, you can link in the training to the MOC process. And from a more general perspective, if we go back to the person record, so just into people. And we look at the training here, then we have dates associated with this planned training and your start dates and end dates. We also have valid until dates and information on the actual sessions on the training application, as well as whether they've completed the course or not. So one of the things that we anticipate you'd be able to do there is to use escalation capability within the standard capability within Maximo to be able, if you wanted to be able to validate on the and use escalations and potentially linked into to SLAs to highlight whether a person has the necessary training completed by the required date. We've seen customers do this with certifications and certification using a similar technique on whether, say, for an issuing authority for a permit to work, whether they've got current certification, and say, for example, if that needs renewing, send them a warning, sending them an email message saying that their renewal is becoming due, and if it then sort of the next level of escalation would be if they don't have it, just maybe sending a notice to their supervisor to say that their training or their certification is about to run out, and warning that action needs to be taken. So we've sort of tried to build this to incorporate that some of the standard escalation capability within Maximo. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, David, we'll give you the final comment or question before we go ahead and wrap up our session today.
Well, thank you. I just, Russell, I want to thank you for giving a very, very short but thorough overview of the capabilities. And I think, as Patty mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but it is extremely important for safety environmental to have a program in place and to connect that directly to the assets. Usually it's assets that are behaving or misperforming that can create incidents, be it environmental, be it injuries, be it whatever. And this is a great way to manage that risk.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and we've got a pretty wide customer base now, so literally hundreds of customers using this capability, and it's really interesting at the moment to see the really strong interest in this area at the moment. So appreciate your comments there.
All right, so I want to thank everybody for attending today. Keep in mind, this is a monthly series that ZPro Solutions and IBM are doing to help share information to the user community, to our client base. If you do have any suggestions on topics of what you would like to hear in the coming months, please reach out to myself, Bob Keeley, and you can reach me at bob.keeley at ZPro Solutions, or you can also find us via our website. But please do reach out to us and let us know if there's any specific topics you would like to address. We are talking about topics for the next roundtable, the series, to be things like Maximo Linear, Maximo Application Suite, things that obviously are going to be new and improved in Maximo, as well as it might just be talking about upgrades and or a move to the cloud. So again, if you have any topics, these sessions are for you. Please let us know so that we can work that into our monthly series agenda. Again, thank you for your attendance today. The session has been recorded, so we will be posting the recording as well. And with that, Russell, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Goodbye.
Take care.
Thank you.